My name is Emily Carter. Some people grow up feeling loved. Others grow up feeling needed. There is a big difference. If you enjoy emotional family dramas, unforgettable karma stories, and powerful life lessons, make sure to subscribe to Quiet Karma Stories. Every story on this channel reminds us that kindness, self-respect, and quiet strength are worth more than money. I was the oldest daughter in my family. From the time I was a teenager, everyone expected me to be responsible, reliable, the one who always figured things out. After graduating from college, I built a successful career as a financial consultant. I worked long hours, skipped vacations, missed holidays, and accepted every promotion that came my way. Not because I loved money, but because my family always needed help. When my parents struggled to pay their mortgage, I paid it. When the electricity bill arrived and they couldn't afford it, I paid that too. When my father needed expensive medical treatment that insurance didn't fully cover, I never hesitated. I transferred the money the same day. When my younger sister, Rachel, was accepted into one of the best universities in the state, I paid her tuition. Every semester, every textbook, every unexpected expense. If my mother needed a new car, I helped. If the roof leaked, I paid for the repairs. If the refrigerator broke, I replaced it. Year after year, the money kept flowing. At first, my parents thanked me, but gratitude slowly disappeared. Helping them stopped being appreciated. It became expected. Whenever another bill arrived, my phone would ring. Emily, we need your help again. Not once did they ask, can you afford it? Or, are you saving for your own future? They simply assumed I would always say yes. And I always did. Because they were my family. Rachel rarely noticed what was happening. She believed our parents somehow managed everything on their own. No one ever told her where the money came from. I never corrected her. I didn't want her to feel guilty. I told myself that one day things would be different. One day my parents would realize how much I had sacrificed. One day they would simply say, "Thank you." But that day never came. Instead, I became something else. Not their daughter. Not their biggest supporter. Not even part of the family. I became their safety net. The invisible person they called whenever life became expensive. And I had no idea that my 35th birthday was about to teach me the most painful lesson of my life. Because sometimes, the people who depend on you the most are the ones who value you the least. My 35th birthday fell on a Saturday. For the first time in years, I decided not to make any plans. No business meetings. No client calls. No overtime. I hoped for something simple. A quiet dinner with my family. Nothing extravagant. Just one evening together. That morning, my mother sent me a short text. Come by the house around 6. No birthday wishes. No heart emoji. No mention of a celebration. Still, I smiled. Maybe they were planning a surprise. After all, I had spent years taking care of everyone else. Maybe this year, someone had remembered me. On my way home from work, I stopped at a bakery. I bought my favorite chocolate cake. I even picked up flowers for my mother. As I drove toward my parents' house, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. When I pulled into the driveway, I immediately noticed several expensive cars parked outside. I smiled. They really did plan something. I picked up the cake and walked to the front door. Before I even rang the bell, I heard loud music. Laughter. People cheering. I opened the door. The living room was filled with guests. Balloons covered the ceiling. Elegant decorations were everywhere. A huge banner stretched across the wall. "Congratulations, Rachel." I froze. For a few seconds. I couldn't move. Everyone was gathered around my younger sister. She stood in the center of the room, smiling as people congratulated her on receiving a major promotion at work. No one had noticed me. Not yet. I quietly stood there holding my own birthday cake. Finally, my mother turned around. "Oh. Emily." She looked almost surprised to see me. I forced a smile. "What's going on?" She walked over casually. "We're celebrating Rachel's promotion." I looked around the room again. Then back at her. "My birthday." She hesitated for only a second. Then shrugged. "We thought you needed some space." Those words hit harder than I expected. Space. On my birthday. In the house whose mortgage I had been paying for years. I looked at my father. He avoided my eyes. Rachel finally noticed me and walked over. She smiled awkwardly. "Oh. I didn't realize today was your birthday." I stared at her. She genuinely didn't know. No one had told her. I wasn't angry with Rachel. I was heartbroken. Because in that moment, everything suddenly made sense. Every bill I had paid. Every sacrifice I had made. Every dream I had postponed. To them. I wasn't the daughter who always showed up. I wasn't the sister who carried the family through difficult times. I was simply the person who paid the bills. Their invisible bank account. I slowly placed the birthday cake on the kitchen counter. No one stopped me. No one apologized. No one even wished me a happy birthday. I picked up my purse and quietly walked toward the front door. Just before leaving, I turned around. Everyone had already gone back to celebrating Rachel. As if I had never been there. I walked to my car, closed the door, and sat in silence. For the first time in my life, I didn't cry. Instead, I made a decision. A quiet decision. One that would change my family's life forever. Because starting the very next morning, every automatic payment they had depended on for years would disappear. The morning after my birthday, I woke up before sunrise. For the first time in years. My phone was completely silent. No messages. No apologies. No one asking how I was. I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee and opened my laptop. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even sad. I was simply finished. For years, I had convinced myself that helping my family was the right thing to do. Maybe it was. But somewhere along the way, helping had turned into enabling. They no longer appreciated my support. They expected it. I logged into my online banking account. One by one, every automatic payment appeared on the screen. My parents' mortgage. The electricity bill. Water and gas. Home insurance. My father's medical insurance. Rachel's credit card payment. Even their internet service. Seeing the list made me realize something I had never stopped to calculate. I wasn't just helping my family. I was financially carrying their entire life. I took a deep breath. Then I clicked the first button. Cancel automatic payment. A small message appeared on the screen. Are you sure? I whispered. Yes. Click. The mortgage payment disappeared. Next came the utilities. Click. Then the insurance. Click. The medical expenses. Click. Rachel's monthly credit card payment. Click. Finally. The last automatic transfer was cancelled. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the screen. Within 15 minutes. Years of financial responsibility had come to an end. It felt strangely peaceful. Not because I wanted my family to suffer, but because, for the first time, I was choosing myself. I transferred the money that normally left my account every month into my personal savings instead. Then I opened a new investment account. For years, I had postponed my own dreams. Buying a home. Traveling. Planning for retirement. Now, I was finally planning for my own future. I didn't send a text. I didn't make a phone call. I didn't leave an angry note. I owed no explanations. If my family had ever looked beyond the money, they would have noticed what I had been doing all these years. Now they would have to notice something else. Its absence. I closed my laptop and walked out onto my balcony. The morning air felt different. Lighter. For the first time in a very long time, I wasn't carrying everyone else's burdens. I was carrying my own life. And somehow, that felt enough. I had no idea how long it would take my family to notice the missing payments. But I knew one thing. The day they finally did, they wouldn't be calling to ask how I was. They would be calling to ask where the money had gone. 3 weeks passed. I heard nothing from my family. Not a single phone call. Not a single text message. At first, I wondered if they had finally learned to stand on their own. Then, one Monday morning, my phone buzzed. It was my father. I let it ring. A minute later, he called again. Then my mother. Then Rachel. I didn't answer. By lunchtime, I had 12 missed calls. I knew something had happened. That evening, my mother finally left a voicemail. Her voice sounded panicked. Emily. Please call us. The bank says our mortgage payment didn't go through. We don't know what's happening. I quietly set my phone down. 4 years. The mortgage had always been paid automatically from my account. They had never even noticed. The next morning, another voicemail arrived. This time, it was my father. The electricity company sent us a warning. They said the payment failed. I thought everything was set up. I closed my eyes. It had always been set up. Because I had set it up. A few days later, Rachel called. The moment I answered, she sounded frustrated. My credit card was declined today. I've never missed a payment before. She paused. Do you know what's going on? I asked her one simple question. Rachel. Who do you think has been paying it? The line went completely silent. For several seconds. She didn't say a word. I thought Mom and Dad were paying it. I gently replied. No. I was. Another long silence followed. She whispered. For how long? Almost 7 years. I could hear her breathing change. She was trying to process everything. Within another week, reality hit my family all at once. The mortgage payment had officially failed. Late fees began to pile up. The utility companies sent final notices. Their home insurance renewal was suspended. Several automatic subscriptions were cancelled. Even Rachel's credit cards began restricting purchases after missed payments. One by one, the comfortable life they had taken for granted started falling apart. Not because anyone had stolen from them. Not because of bad luck. But because the one person quietly holding everything together had finally stopped. That Friday evening, I received a group text from my parents. Emily. We need to talk. Please. For the first time in many years. It wasn't because they needed another payment. It was because they had finally realized who had been making their lives possible all along. And before the week was over, they would discover a truth that would leave every one of them speechless. The phone rang again the following morning. This time, I answered. Before I could even say hello, my father's voice exploded through the speaker. Emily, what is going on? Why did you stop sending the money? You've put this family in a terrible situation. I remained silent until he finished. Then I calmly asked, can we talk in person? An hour later, my parents and Rachel arrived at my apartment. The atmosphere was tense. No one smiled. No one hugged me. My father immediately began speaking. The mortgage is overdue. The insurance company is calling. Rachel's credit cards are frozen. You need to fix this. Need. Not. Please. Not. Can we talk? I looked at each of them before quietly asking, does anyone want to know how I'm doing? The room fell silent. No one answered. I slowly opened my laptop. I want to show you something. I logged into my banking account. Then I turned the screen toward them. This is where your money came from. One by one, I opened years of transaction records. Monthly mortgage payments. Electricity. Water. Gas. Home insurance. Medical bills. Rachel's university tuition. Her apartment rent during college. Her credit card payments. Car repairs. Emergency expenses. The list seemed endless. Month after month. Year after year. My mother covered her mouth. I didn't know. I quietly continued scrolling. Then I opened a spreadsheet I had kept for my own records. Every dollar I had spent on our family was carefully organized. At the very bottom, a single number appeared. Total family support over 8 years, $487,360. No one spoke. Rachel stared at the screen without blinking. My father looked as though he had forgotten how to breathe. Finally, he whispered. Almost. $500,000. I nodded. Yes. I never asked for it back. I never kept score. I only wanted my family to be okay. My mother's eyes filled with tears. And we never even thanked you. I smiled sadly. No. You didn't. Rachel slowly sat down. I thought Mom and Dad were paying for college. I looked at her. I wanted you to focus on your education. I never wanted you to carry that burden. She buried her face in her hands. Oh my God. I had no idea. My father lowered his head. For the first time in my life. He looked ashamed. Real shame. I spent years believing I was taking care of this family. He paused. But it was you. It was always you. I closed my laptop. I never expected applause. I never wanted recognition. I only hoped that one day you would see me as your daughter. Not your emergency fund. Tears rolled down my mother's face. She reached for my hand. Emily. We've failed you. I didn't pull away. But I didn't answer either. Because some truths don't need a response. They simply need to be heard. As my family quietly left my apartment that afternoon, they weren't arguing anymore. They weren't demanding money. For the first time, they were carrying something much heavier than unpaid bills. They were carrying guilt. And over the next few days, that guilt would bring them back to my door. Not to ask for another dollar. but to ask for something far more difficult. Forgiveness. 2 days after my family left my apartment, the doorbell rang again. This time, only Rachel was standing outside. She looked exhausted. Her eyes were red from crying. "Can I come in?" she asked quietly. I stepped aside without saying a word. She walked into my living room and sat on the couch. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Finally, she looked at me. "Emily, I still can't believe everything you've done for us." Before I could answer, the front door opened. James had just returned home from work. He greeted Rachel politely before setting his briefcase down. "Good afternoon." Rachel gave him a small smile. "I came to apologize." James nodded. "I think that's a good place to start." As the three of us sat together, Rachel quietly asked, "Was it really that much money?" James looked at me for a moment. Then he turned back to Rachel. "It was much more than money." Rachel frowned. "What do you mean?" James walked over to the bookshelf and picked up a small folder. He placed it gently on the coffee table. "Emily never wanted anyone to know this. But I think it's time." I looked at him. He gave me a reassuring smile. Rachel slowly opened the folder. Inside were retirement account statements, investment reports, savings plans, and mortgage pre-approval letters. She looked confused. James spoke softly. "Do you remember when Emily almost bought a house 3 years ago?" Rachel nodded. "Mom said the deal fell through." James shook his head. "No. Emily canceled it herself." Rachel looked at him in disbelief. "Why?" "Because your father needed heart surgery that insurance wouldn't fully cover. The down payment became his medical bill." Rachel's eyes widened. James continued. "That wasn't the only sacrifice." He pointed toward another document. "Emily also withdrew money from her retirement fund." Rachel stared at the statement. "You used your retirement savings?" I quietly nodded. "More than once." James sighed. "Every time your family faced another financial emergency, Emily postponed another dream. The house she wanted. The vacations we planned. Our future. Even her retirement." Rachel's hands began to shake. She looked at me with tears streaming down her face. "I never knew. I thought Mom and Dad were taking care of everything." I smiled gently. "I wanted you to focus on building your life. You were never supposed to carry that burden." Rachel suddenly broke down. She buried her face in her hands and began crying uncontrollably. "I'm so sorry. I spent years celebrating my promotions, while you were sacrificing your future for mine." I moved beside her and gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "I'm not telling you this to make you feel guilty." She looked up through her tears. "Then why?" "Because I need you to understand the difference between being loved and being used." The room fell silent. Rachel slowly nodded. For the first time in her life, she finally understood what my parents had never seen. I hadn't been the successful daughter. I had been the silent foundation holding the entire family together. And the moment that foundation disappeared, everything they had built on top of it began to collapse. As Rachel quietly left our home that evening, she turned back before closing the door. "I can't change the past." She wiped away another tear. "But I promise you this. I'll spend the rest of my life earning back the trust one never realized I'd lost." Watching her walk away, I felt something I hadn't expected. Not satisfaction. Not revenge. Hope. Because sometimes, the first step toward healing a family is finally telling the truth. A week passed after Rachel visited me. For the first time in years. My phone remained quiet. No requests. No unpaid bills. No emergency messages. Just silence. I wasn't sure if that silence meant peace. Or distance. Then, one Sunday afternoon, the doorbell rang. When I opened the door, I saw my parents standing on the porch. Neither of them looked like the people I had known all my life. My father seemed older. His shoulders were slumped. My mother's eyes were swollen from crying. Neither of them was carrying bills. Or paperwork. Or bank documents. Just a small bouquet of white lilies. My favorite flowers. "We're not here to stay long," my mother said softly. "We just hoped you'd let us come in." I stepped aside. "Come in." The house was unusually quiet. James greeted them politely before giving us some privacy. No one spoke for several moments. Finally, my father broke the silence. "Emily. I've rehearsed this conversation 100 times. But I still don't know if I deserve your forgiveness." He looked down at his hands. "I spent years believing I was a good father. I provided food. A home. An education. But somewhere along the way, I stopped seeing my own daughter." My mother began crying again. "We loved you. But we showed that love in the worst possible way. We leaned on you so much. That we forgot you needed someone to lean on too." Hearing those words hurt more than all the arguments we'd ever had. Because they were true. My father looked me in the eyes. "I'm sorry, Emily. Not because we lost your financial support. But because we almost lost you. For the first time in my life." I believed he meant it. Then my mother reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. She placed it on the table. Inside was every spare dollar they had managed to save over the past few weeks. It wasn't much. But it represented something far greater than money. "We know this doesn't repay everything you've done. It never could. We just wanted to show you. We're finally learning to stand on our own." Then my father quietly added. "We didn't come here asking for another check. We came here hoping that one day you might let us be your family again." The room fell silent. I looked at both of them. Their words sounded sincere. Their tears looked real. But deep inside, a question still lingered. If I had never stopped the payments, would they have ever realized what they had done? Or would I still be nothing more than the daughter who quietly paid every bill? I wanted to believe them. I truly did. But trust isn't rebuilt with one apology. It's rebuilt through consistent actions. I took a slow breath. "I appreciate your apology. And I believe you're trying. But healing doesn't happen in one afternoon. It takes time." Both of them nodded. They understood. There were no arguments. No guilt. No pressure. Only acceptance. As they stood to leave, my mother hugged me tightly. "I don't expect you to trust us today," she whispered through tears. "I just hope you'll give us the chance to earn it." After they left, James walked back into the living room. He sat beside me and gently took my hand. "What are you thinking?" I looked out the window as my parents' car disappeared down the street. "I think they finally understand what they almost lost." James smiled softly. "And do you believe they've changed?" I didn't answer right away. Instead, I watched the empty driveway for a long moment. Then I quietly said, "I don't know yet. But this time, I'm going to let their actions answer that question." And in the months ahead, those actions would reveal whether my family had truly learned the value of love. or whether they had simply learned the value of losing it. Over the next few months, something began to change. Not overnight. Not dramatically. But slowly. My parents started paying their own bills. My father found part-time consulting work after retirement. My mother carefully managed every household expense. Rachel took on extra projects at work and even started making monthly payments toward her own credit cards. For the first time, everyone was carrying their own responsibilities. One Sunday afternoon, they invited James and me over for dinner. The atmosphere felt different. There were no expensive decorations. No pretending. Just a simple meal around the same dining table where I had once felt invisible. As dinner came to an end, my father cleared his throat. "Emily. We've been talking." He looked at my mother before continuing. "We know things are still difficult. But if you're willing." He hesitated. "Would you consider helping us one more time?" The room became quiet. Rachel immediately looked uncomfortable. "Dad." "No." She shook her head. "We promised we'd stop depending on Emily." I appreciated her words. But everyone was still looking at me. Waiting. I smiled gently. Then I reached across the table and held my mother's hand. "I love all of you. I always will." I paused for a moment. But love and financial responsibility are not the same thing. They listened carefully. For years, I would have said yes without thinking. This time, I calmly shook my head. "I'm not going to pay your bills anymore." No one argued. No one became angry. Instead, they quietly listened. Then I spoke the words I had carried in my heart for years. Love shouldn't come with automatic payments. The room fell completely silent. My father slowly lowered his head. My mother's eyes filled with tears. Rachel wiped her face with a napkin. For the first time, no one tried to change my mind. No one tried to make me feel guilty. Because they finally understood. Respect cannot exist where one person is only valued for what they provide. A family cannot survive if love depends on money. Healthy relationships need gratitude, honesty, and boundaries. James smiled proudly from across the table. Later that evening, as we prepared to leave, my father walked me to the front door. "I'm proud of you," he said quietly. I looked at him in surprise. He smiled sadly. I should have said those words years ago. I hugged him. Not because everything had been fixed, but because healing had finally begun. As James and I drove home, he reached over and held my hand. "You know," he said with a smile, "you didn't win by proving them wrong. You won by finally protecting your own peace." I looked out the window at the sunset. For so many years, I believed setting boundaries would destroy my family. Instead, it gave us our first real chance to become one. And in that moment, I realized something I would never forget. Sometimes the greatest act of love is teaching people that your kindness should never be mistaken for obligation. A year passed. Life looked very different. Not because everything had become perfect, but because everyone had finally started taking responsibility for their own lives. For the first time in years, I was building a future that belonged to me. James and I had spent months saving together. Without carrying everyone else's financial burdens, we were finally able to do something we had dreamed about for years. We bought our first home. It wasn't the biggest house in the neighborhood. It didn't need to be. It was ours. Every room represented a dream we had once postponed. Every wall reminded us that choosing ourselves wasn't selfish. It was necessary. On moving day, James looked around the empty living room and smiled. "We built this together. I squeezed his hand. Yes. And this time, we didn't have to sacrifice our future to protect someone else's. Meanwhile, my parents' lives slowly changed too. My father continued working part-time after retirement. My mother carefully managed their finances and learned how to budget for the first time in years. They no longer expected someone else to rescue them. Instead, they learned the quiet dignity of standing on their own. Rachel changed the most. She worked harder than ever, accepted extra responsibilities at her company, cut unnecessary expenses. And 6 months later, she showed up at my front door carrying a small envelope. "I know this isn't much," she said nervously. "But it's the first payment." Inside was a check. It wasn't enough to repay everything I had sacrificed. Nothing ever could. But that wasn't the point. She looked at me with tears in her eyes. "I'm not paying back the money. I'm honoring the love behind it." I hugged her tightly. "You don't owe me a debt." She smiled through her tears. "I know. But I owe you respect." Month after month, Rachel continued sending small payments. Not because I demanded them, but because she wanted to rebuild the trust she had once taken for granted. As time passed, family dinners slowly returned. This time, no one compared careers. No one measured success by salaries. No one expected me to pay the bill. We laughed, shared stories, made new memories. For the first time in many years, it actually felt like a family. One evening, as James and I sat on the porch of our new home watching the sunset, he quietly asked, "If you could go back, would you change anything?" I thought about it for a long moment. Then I smiled. No. Because losing the role they expected me to play helped me find the person I was always meant to be. James wrapped his arm around my shoulders. Neither of us spoke again. We didn't need to. Sometimes peace says everything words cannot. Looking back, I realized my story had never been about money. It had always been about value. About learning that love should never have to be purchased. That respect should never depend on what you provide. And that the strongest families aren't built on financial support. They're built on gratitude, honesty, and unconditional love. Before we went inside, I looked at the home James and I had built together and quietly smiled. Because I finally understood the lesson that had taken me 35 years to learn. The people who truly love you will never measure your worth by what you give them. They will treasure you simply because you are family.